Okay, hey, this is Frank Alexander with the Dallas Renegades, and this is the XFL show.
Fumble the snap. Walker picks it up. Now trying to turn something out of nothing and into the end zone for the most unlikely of touchdowns. Off the fumbled snap, P.J. Walker picks it up and runs into the end zone for another Roughnecks touchdown.
Jones. Caught Parham. The big tight end rumbles down the sideline. 6'8" and speed. His second touchdown of the half. 65 on that one.
Woo! How about the long strider? And they're going to turn it around with room on the near side. And for the first time, they get creative. And the Battlehawks have the sideline. And a kickoff return for Joe Powell to the end zone. And now they say he stepped out. No, touchdown, St. Louis.
Carter with Klutz. Carter flipped into the end zone. Hey, he told you he tapped. If he could get there one more time, he'd do a flip. This time, he delivered.
For the love of football. For the love of football. For the love of football.
Welcome, football fans. This is February 25th, 2020. This is For the Love of Football, and this is the XFL show. I'm Alan.
And I'm Bryant.
Week 3 was filled with surprises, twists, turns, backflips, and yes, Ka-Kaws. Time to get into all of it. This is episode 116. Ka-Kaw is the law. Bryant, we're back from St. Louis, and we're here to talk about what was a buck nutty Week 3 in the XFL.
Buck nutty for so many reasons. Our trip down to St. Louis was amazing. Thanks for all the fans out there that made us feel welcome and a part of that town. It was a lot of fun. Ka-Kaw to all of you. My voice is a little more raspy too, by the way. It's not good on the vocal cords.
I like how politely you do that. Ka-Kaw to all of you. Ka-Kaw.
Ka-Kaw. We're trying to get other people to Ka-Kaw on this show too later today. We'll see if that actually happens. But yes, Alan, a wild Week 3, and only one of us went 4-0. We'll talk about who that was a little bit later.
Yes, we will, and we will talk to that guest you mentioned in a little bit later. The coach, Jonathan Coachman, will join us once again to discuss everything that went down in Week 3 in the XFL. Also, maybe take a peek ahead to Week 4, what's going on now with each team, now that we're 3 weeks into it. And, I mean, parity is something that a lot of people are talking about after this week, Bryant, because the teams at the top, you know, some teams got a little bit closer to them this past week because one of them fell. The other one's still on top. Houston still looks like the class of the XFL. They're on a steady pace. DC trips, they fall flat on their face in LA, and all of a sudden there's a lot more hope across the XFL when it comes to teams or fans believing in their teams, especially where we were. St. Louis, they looked great.
Yeah, parity was a key component that came out of Week 3, where you saw teams that maybe had a rough Week 1 or even a rough Week 2 kind of make strides towards getting towards the top. DC kind of fell flat on their face, but at the same time, you know, that's only Week 3. Week 4, Houston, probably one of their toughest matchups. They're going to have to go on the road, so that's going to be a great test for Week 4. St. Louis is looking great. LA looked really good. I think there's a lot of things happening in the XFL right now that parity seems to be at the top of the list.
Yep, and we're going to talk about that when we break down each and every single one of these games. We also today will be giving away our Week 3 awards. We will get into our power rankings and some of the reaction that you've given to it, because we did post them on Twitter. We are at XFL Show on Twitter. If you want to check those power rankings out, want to comment on them, you could do it right there. Or if you want to call into us directly, we love hearing from you on the XFL Fan Line, 724-565 for XFL. So call in. It's 24/7, 365, that line for you to call in, and we'll air it on the show. Just leave your name, where you're from, and let us hear from you, and let us know who you got. That number 2 through 4 spot, especially in the power rankings this week, Bryant, going to be interesting to discuss. And this week, I think really it was the culmination of what we were told by Oliver Luck going into the season. The parity, teams really having a chance all season long. I think that became a reality this week, especially in cities like Dallas, in LA, and then, of course, in St. Louis, where now all of a sudden they find themselves atop the Eastern Division. It is very, very interesting when you talk about Week 3 and what it means for the rest of the season going forward, and what it means for all these teams and their fan bases now that are growing, having hope for those XFL playoffs and, of course, the championship game in Houston. I cannot wait. We're also going to talk about, well, some of what you're saying on social media, which we should get into here now, Bryant, because I want to clarify something real quick that a fan asked me on social before Week 3 kicked off. I don't know if you saw what this guy asked me, Joe Tom's River on Twitter. It's a legitimate concern. You were like,
okay, let me read it out. Let me read it out before you get all hot-headed, because people want to know what the question is.
I don't get hot. This is a legitimate concern of Joe Tom's River, and I'm here to legitimately answer and explain myself.
Okay, on Twitter, Joe Tom's River tweeted out, replied to us. In this episode, this was last episode, 115, Allen said that Houston will have the largest margin of victory this weekend, but Houston is not the team that he is most confident will win this weekend. Help me make sense of that as it sounds.
You gotta be kidding me.
So, Alan, the floor is yours.
Okay, making sense out of that as it sounds, and he said illogical or whatever. All right, Joe, this is why. I was confident that the Battlehawks would win the game. That's different. That's a confidence pick. Score is different. And the Houston score, I thought, would be the biggest margin. And I will admit it right now. I was wrong on that. Tampa Bay showed up, played them tough. It was a 7-point game. And the Battlehawks ended up winning by 20. And then we all were wrong, Bryant. You picked LA, but I don't think you picked them to win by 30. But to explain myself, Joe, Tom's River on Twitter, we appreciate you hitting us up at XFL Show. Reason is confidence to me, a confidence pick different from a points pick. Does that make sense to you, Bryant? They're two different things as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely not. Doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know why that doesn't.
I'm just trying to egg you on. It's fine. No, it makes sense. Your confidence level. No, I mean, it makes sense to me. Your confidence level for one game is one thing. Your point spread on another game is completely. Those are two different ways to approach it. A result of a football game, and that's what you did, and that's fine because your confidence level on it. You can say that I think the Battlehawks are going to win this game by a field goal. I'm so sure of it. There's no doubt in my mind. And you can also say that Houston's going to beat.
And you know what?
By 20.
I'm confident in saying this too. I was right in both games on who would win both games, which wasn't really hard to pick at all. Those were the two easiest games to pick if you're just picking winners in Houston and St. Louis, and they proved as such this weekend with convincing victories. Even though Houston it was close for a while, but they pulled it out at the end. There was never really a doubt in my mind when we'll get into that game that Tampa Bay would punch through at the end there, Bryant, because, well, their bugaboo we've seen caught back up with them at the end of that attempted comeback. Let's real quick dive into some of the real quick news and notes from the weekend with, when it comes to injuries, transactions, the injuries in these games, Bryant, the major one I noticed was unfortunate for the LA Wildcats. We got to see what Trey McBride's at. He shows up in this big game against the team that traded him, the DC Defenders, scoring all over the place, but he unfortunately took a shot to the head at the end there.
Yeah, he had a great first half, 2 touchdown receptions, looking really good. Made the Wildcats look even better than they had so far this season, but then went out with an injury. Looked like maybe shoulder, head, took a shot, didn't return. Still no word back on exactly what the time length or the severity of the injury is. But that was a little scary for sure to see that happen in that Wildcats game, especially after performing so well that he did to start that game.
And then you have Matt McGloin, who we heard during the game was apparently had a ribs issue, and we don't know what whether or not that'll be a factor, well, that will be a factor for sure, but what about his actual play on the field, if that's a factor in determining who starts for the New York Guardians against the LA Wildcats in Week 4, something we definitely have to discuss coming from the injuries here that we noticed over the course of the weekend, Bryant. And I believe, other than that, do you remember any other key moments where we said, oh, we got to keep an eye on that guy, looked banged up?
In terms of injuries, no. I think there was some key moments where there were some players who became stars again for other reasons, not because of injuries, but because of their acts on the field. But we'll leave that for some other time.
Are you talking about Ian Silberman, the center for the Guardians? The refs go into the coach, say, Coach, your guy out there is acting very unprofessional. You better get a hold of him. And then it's just going out there like a madman.
We were at the game. We were watching it, and I will say that our first reaction was to say, "What's wrong with this man? He's getting too many penalties. He's getting worked up." And to his own fault, I think he showed his emotions on his sleeve so much that St. Louis knew it, and they were egging him on. They were doing things to set him off. And I think, to his defense, some of those, like somebody grabbed his face mask, and then they got the retaliation, as always in football, right? They always get the guy who retaliates. And then there was another one. I think they were too close to the huddle, and he got upset, so he kind of pushed them away, and that caused a penalty as well. So if he took a step back and calmed down a little bit, some of those fouls would have been not necessary, because I don't think St. Louis would have egged them on as they did towards the end of that game.
Wait, are you pro or anti what Will Hill did, dragging a guy by the leg?
I see that.
Like he was an oversized bag of trash. That's kind of what set off Ian Silberman.
I would suggest to do neither. Never drag a man by his feet or a bag of trash on the floor like that, because it's just going to rip up. Both of those could end very horribly for you. So
yeah, you catch.
You're right. Yeah, not cool.
Yeah, you catch a stick or something on the ground, and then all of a sudden you got trash all over the street, and then you're just going to pick it all up one by one, throw it in another bag. It's never a good thing. Transaction-wise, actually, on the Monday after Week 3, quite a few to run through. Really good news for the Tampa Bay Vipers. They're going to be getting Obumgwacham back, the defensive end who in the NFL played for the Saints, is a very capable pass rusher and guy there on the defensive line. And he could really help Tampa Bay, who I think has struggled getting after the quarterback. Again, for the Dallas Renegades too, Brian, Eric Dungy is now on the reserve left squad list, and Team 9 call-up Brogan Roback back with the Dallas Renegades. So that same transaction, you're just not deja vu, has happened once again. And then also Tampa Bay and St. Louis also had a trade. Cornerback Trey Caldwell will go to Tampa Bay from St. Louis, and linebacker Anthony Stubbs will go to St. Louis from Tampa Bay. And those are your transactions. You could go check those out on XFL.com throughout the week. If any other transactions happen throughout the week, of course, we'll talk about them here on the show. But love all the updates and how thorough the website XFL.com is in informing fans on every single detail you want to know about when it comes to the stats, injuries, transactions. It's the place to go. And it's also the place to go to get your merch, Bryant, because now we have been asked many times. I don't know about you. There's still people who don't realize they could just go to XFL.com and get themselves some gear. And I actually told a family member that the other day to go to XFLshop.com. He's like, man, I want a Wildcat shirt like the one you have on. I said, XFLshop.com, go. Ended up buying like way more Wildcat stuff than I think anybody on the planet Earth owns than in one household. But that's where he went. XFLshop.com is the online store for authentic XFL gear. Dressed like the pros with exclusive sideline apparel, including game jerseys, plus tees, tops, and headwear from your favorite team. And you can get it all at XFLshop.com. Do you see those hats with, like, they had the line on the bottom right above the brim there this weekend, Bryant? They kind of rolled those out on the sidelines. Might have to get one of those.
If you want to look like Rob Lowe did during the Super Bowl, I mean, get yourself some cool XFL merch as well. A lot of stuff there. Go ahead and check that out.
I'm pretty sure Jim
XFL
Zorn, XFLshop.com. I'm pretty sure Jim Zorn was wearing just like an XFL.
Yes, he was generic
zip
XFL
up.
hoodie or zip up or something. Yeah,
It wasn't even a Dragons. It wasn't even I almost was like, Jim Zorn, not the coach of the Dragons. He's not even wearing any Dragons gear. I'm sure someone's going to notice that this week. I don't know. It looked like a comfortable zip up though. Let's get back to some more of what they're saying on social media as we dink and dunk around week 3 here, Bryant. I saw Delmar Domino at Hawaii Warrior 87 on Twitter had a couple of good questions and comments here I'd like to shine a light on. Anytime someone's working hard on Twitter to prompt us with interesting things to talk about, want to show them love. And he said, at XFL show, should XFL scouts be keeping an eye on the NFL Combine? Hashtag XFL, hashtag for the love of football. Yes! Hawaii Warrior.
absolutely.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Should be the NFL Combine, all the college all-star games, anywhere people are playing football competitively, the XFL scouts should be, and they are, I promise you, keeping an eye on it.
Well, Alan, I mentioned to you just in casual conversation this weekend when we were in St. Louis. I said, people don't realize how good these players are going to be getting year after year in the XFL. Right? You talk about players whose rookie contracts end and teams decide to replace them with a rookie who's a cheaper, alternative rather than renewing them or signing them to a longer term deal. Those players are now going to become available to the XFL. So the player pool for the XFL is only getting bigger as the time goes. And the Combine is just another great place for the XFL to find great players. I mean, look at Jordan Ta'amu. Jordan Ta'amu never took a snap in the NFL, and here he is in the XFL. So rookies coming out of college are totally something the XFL are looking at and will bring into the league next season.
And our buddy, the Hawaii Warrior 87, also added on to that, Bryant. I thought this one was something that we were talking about in St. Louis this weekend. Shines a light on this too. He said, if the Dragons and Battlehawks can fill up their stadiums by season end, those places are going to be tough to play at. We were sitting there at the Battle Dome in St. Louis just going, I can't imagine how hard this is for the Guardians to get their stuff together on offense. I mean, they were having issues before, but going into that atmosphere, we were on the field, Brian, before the game, before the place was even filled up, and it was deafening.
Let's get something straight. Those places are already hard to play in with 30,000 fans. If those things fill up even more, I would not want to be the opposing team. I might just call it a game and not even show up if I had to play in those stadiums filled up to the brim. There was a level of excitement, of energy that you could feel before you got into the stadium. Alan, when those doors opened and there was about 10% of that crowd in there, it got loud already. Yeah, you're right. Once the season continues, those stadiums are just going to get louder, filled with more people, harder to play in for the visiting teams.
I think they definitely will be, but I also think that these stadiums right now are showing the fans in other stadiums that if they plan on rooting for their teams of fans of the Guardians, fans of the Vipers, fans of the Defenders, LA, you got to bring it. That's if there's competition among fans. So let's see if anybody responds. If they want to, start their own chants, their own traditions. I mean, if you watch that on TV, which we watched it back, Bryant, and you're in another town with another XFL team, and you saw how much fun the Battlehawks fans are having, I don't know. I want to be a part of something like that. So we'll see. We'll see what other kind of chants, because that Battlehawks chant, the Ka-Kaw, I mean, it's so much fun, and all the other 7 teams are going to have other stuff going on like that eventually. St. Louis is kind of first to it, but St. Louis, I will say, I saw some people going through flaming tables in the parking lot. You don't need to be doing any of that. Please.
Yeah,
please.
Make it to the game. Make it to the game. The tailgating was something that we talked about, Alan, many times this over the weekend, especially on our recaps, which you can check those out, by the way, on the feed here. We do mini recaps of every single game after that. But yeah, fans, if you want to be a fan of a football team, I guess watch the Battlehawks game, because that's the energy you should be bringing. to these games. The Vipers had a great turnout. I think surprised a lot of people from what we've heard, Alan. Something that no one expected to happen in Tampa. Ended up being a great crowd there. I just hope at some point that every single person in that stadium hisses all together.
Oh my goodness!
If everyone just goes all together,
you got to do the dodgeball thing. I think that's something that must be done in Tampa Bay, honestly. So I think it could even be potentially better than the Ka-Kaw. I mean the. Come on, Tampa, where you at? They sounded good on TV though. All right, well,
how about like a we will hiss you?
Yeah, I don't know about that. That's too much room for interpretation and parody there. All right. Thanks to everybody for hitting us up on Twitter at XFL Show. And, of course, on the late Thursday night show, if you call in 724-5654-XFL on the XFL Fan Line and you want to be on the show, leave your name, where you're from, and give us your comment, question, you might make it on the late Thursday night show as well. Let's get into this week's cover two.
Play fast, do it again.
Here we go. First up, let's give away some awards, Bryant, for week number 3. We're going to
giving me.
I'm going to give you the almost as good as me at eating toasted ravs award. That's your award.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not even going to try to compete with you on toasted ravs.
Oh man, I was eating those like potato chips.
You gave me the option for the last one. This is kind of some sidebar conversations here. You gave me the option for the last one in the hotel room. I was not going to deprive you of that, man. That would have like crushed your weekend if I took that last one from you.
Favorite part of St. Louis this weekend was the tailgate food. Of course the football and the fans, but the food was just spectacular. Toasted raviolis, Spam sandwiches with peanut butter. Sounds weird, right? But trust me, delicious. That's your award, Brian. You were a good eater this weekend. You ate very healthy. I'm proud of you. I almost said that with a straight face. All right, let's.
You almost look like Moss, but nice try. Moss held it a little longer.
Oh, no way I could do that. Stoic Winston Moss. Let's talk about the Star of the Week nominees real quick, Bryant. There's a few names that XFL 2020 have up as options from the weekend. The standouts to me would be probably Trey McBride, Cam Phillips, Josh Johnson, Martez Carter, the Wildcats. I would put 3 potential nominees there, and I'll throw your guy in, Donald Parham, as guys. I'm considering them all. I'm probably leaning Cam Phillips though. I don't know about you.
Yeah, there was some. I don't know. I mean, you had Montez Carter as well, 3 full touchdowns. That was a great performance, a coming out performance. I think you have to give him some bonus points. Basically non-existent as the season started. Big coming out party for him. Josh Johnson looked great. He looked poised. He looked like the reason why 1,500 teams in the XFL and the NFL have signed him previously. Cam Phillips though, almost 200. Was it 200 or almost 200 yards?
Yeah, he was just under 200 yards.
200 yards basically with 3 touchdowns. We questioned the yardage last week for the Roughnecks, but right now Cam Phillips is looking great. I mean, you almost have to do like Cam Phillips, PJ Walker combo at this point too, with those 2 men, because without one, the other one doesn't succeed. It seems like
that's true. I mean, what if at the end of the year it's been going on like this all year? It's 194 yards, by the way, for Cam Phillips. At the end of the year, I mean, what would you do? Would you go PJ Walker or Cam Phillips? It might come down to them two. At this point, if the season ended, they'd be 1 and 2 in the MVP voting probably.
Was it 2009 when Tom Brady had like 50 touchdown passes, but Randy Moss had like 22 receptions of TDs? I think that was like, who do you give it to at that point? They ended up giving it to Tom Brady, of course. But right now, Cam Phillips looks like the star, which is kind of weird because you never see it that way. You always see it as the quarterback being the star and not the receiver. So a nice little change in direction there that the XFL is going in.
Well, he had that one touchdown where he just like wouldn't be denied getting into the end zone, breaking tackles, and then walking in. I mean, another impressive performance. But there was some all those guys stood out this weekend and really, put themselves in a great light, which is what this league's all about, putting yourself out there, showing up, balling, doing what you do, and also getting the entire football world to know your name. And everyone's learning all these guys' names because they're playing great. And they're making magical moments. And that's going to bring us to my award, Bryant, the weekly award I'm going to give away. This was XFL football, and I have to give mine to Mr. Excitement.
No pressure, but I hear you can do a backflip. What's it going to take for you to put it on display?
Give me one more in the box.
Okay, one more in the box. I'll come back.
Carter flipped into the end zone. Hey, he told you he tapped. If he could get there one more time, he'd do a flip. This time, he delivered.
It was a great time to call it. I had a chance to give y'all guys the up and over, and we went up, and we went over. 6 to the boy. 6 to the boy.
Oh man, that I don't know what I have to rank in just Martez Carter's performance. My favorite things he did on Sunday, and maybe
you could rank his sentences. Is actually
maybe number one is probably 6 to the board, because that is like the new catchphrase. That's if I was doing line of the week like Vince does, I might go 6
to the board.
Yeah, 6 to the board.
6 to the boy.
That's the way to do it. But then
there's
the
some great footage on Instagram too for the Wildcats of all the action going on the sideline. A lot of fun to be had. When you're up 30 points, you could have a lot of fun like that, like the XFL.
Oh, actually,
Wildcats were doing.
This just got handed to me by our invisible producer, Bryant. This is party of the week goes to the LA Wildcats sidelines for week 3.
Mardi Gras was in St. Louis, but the party to be had was in the LA Wildcats sideline.
6 to the
boy. Players like Carter make it so easy for reporters, don't they? They're just so energetic. You just put a microphone in front of their face, and they'll do the rest.
Oh, exactly. And the cool thing is we're week 3, but the sideline reporters are learning who to go to and how to do their job, in a fun way too. So those are getting better and better. I honestly think from week 3, 2, 1, each week has been progressively better in terms of the content we got on the sidelines and the entertainment, because now the players are more aware of how everything works too. So it gives you special moments like Mr. Excitement with some just pure, uncut, unadulterated, absolutely XFL football right there with all he did on Sunday. The line of the week, got this from Vince. He sent this in to me, Bryant, as we were doing the show prep. He said, you make sure June Jones wins this week's line of the week. And I said, do not worry. It is, of course, the Houston Roughnecks head coach.
Our guy is going like this. The guy runs up his face. If he's playing the ball, then you could, but he's not playing the ball. And for you not to see contact on that, I'm wondering what the hell you're doing in this league. Seriously.
Listen, if you haven't seen this clip, it's on social media, it's everywhere. Go take a look at the visualizations that June Jones is also doing, because he's like acting like the receiver. He's in the face of the referee. The access, Alan. I guess last week we got that quarterback access. This and the coaching access. This week we get that coach and referee access that we really we don't get to see too often. We just see we have to read lips normally when we watch this kind of confrontation on the field. So it was kind of cool to see this. Man, June Jones.
I'm wondering what the hell you're doing in this league.
What the hell are you doing in this league? Line of the week from Coach June Jones. A beautiful, beautiful moment. And very much so like, his good friend he was coaching against reminded me a lot of Jerry Glanville, who has the famous NFL Not For Long line captured by NFL Films back in the day. And June Jones, you knew he's got that fire. Now the mic is in front of him, and he learned from the best, Jerry Glanville, and you get a special line like that. And I feel bad for that referee. I'm sure that was a heat of the moment thing. I don't know. Hopefully he doesn't get berated like that too much the rest of the season.
I'm wondering what the hell you're doing in this league.
All right, let's go to the celebration of the week, Brian. Easiest one to give away. Martez Carter, backflip, right? Nobody could touch that.
The only one, Alan, that I saw, he didn't do it, but I thought he was when Christian Michael scored that first touchdown for the St. Louis Battlehawks. He runs into the end zone. He runs towards the person holding the big Battlehawks flag. I literally thought he was going to grab that and just start waving it around. I saw it was this close to happening. Maybe next week we'll see that. But yeah, you can't beat the double backflip, somersault, whatever you call it. I'm not a gymnast, so I don't know what it was. Pretty amazing. I think that's just an easy winner for Jake this week for sure.
And what about you? Who made you look good this week, Bryant?
Oh, I could add. I have a few ones that can make me look good this week, right? Parham out of what college is that, Alan?
Stetson.
Oh yeah, in Florida. Thank you very much for that one. Had another great game, but I'm going to give this one as a group this week. I think I'm allowed to do that because it is my award, and I'm giving it to the LA Wildcats. Why would I not give it to them? I picked them to win this game. I was the only one on this show to pick them to win the game, and they did. They came out, they performed, they looked great doing it. I mean, really, it was like no contest. They made the defenders look defenseless. It was something that the Wildcats, no one expected. I didn't expect them to have that kind of a performance, but really, when you dominated a team the way they did 39-9, and just pretty much every single offensive category and defensive category and special teams category, how do you not win this award, especially when I picked them to win it? So my award goes to the LA Wildcats.
They did make you look good, and they looked as good as any team has looked, I think, in a win this season so far. That might have been the most impressive win by any team to me. I mean, it was a butt whooping they laid, a 30-point win. They scored more points than anyone scored in a game yet. Would you say that was the most impressive victory of any team so far in the XFL?
Yeah, that's the most impressive. That's the only one that can compare is DC's win over New York last week, and it wasn't even close. LA came in, dominated every single part of this game, from whistle blow to the end of the game, and really it was just, I don't know how you cannot say that.
It's the quality of the play.
Well, the LA Wildcats look good in that game. Where'd they fall in our power rankings? It looks like number 5, Bryant. How'd that happen? I think I had them ahead of DC, even though their record's not as good. By beating them that way, they jumped ahead of me, but for the collective power rankings that you and Vince, Jake, and I all vote on, it looks like LA ended up at number 5. You want to run down these whole rankings for everybody?
Yeah, Alan, you and I were actually right on the money for each one of our power rankings. But this was the collective between all 4 of us and some tiebreakers here based on the algorithms. Remember, I just put it into the sheet, and then whatever comes out comes out. But number 8, New York, I think no surprise there. Really, just have not looked like a great football team the last 2 weeks. They've kind of settled into that spot. Tampa Bay, although they look great, still no victories. It's hard to put them ahead of some other teams, especially teams that have beat them. But I know New York beat Tampa, but come on. I mean, just two teams going in opposite directions, even though one has a victory and the other one doesn't. Then you have Seattle, number 6. I think it's fair to say that of the 1 and 2 teams, Seattle, they've had their chances, but it's just really something that they haven't been able to put together. They can't put 60 minutes together, Alan. I think that's something we'll talk about here in a little bit as a recap week 3. And then LA, like you mentioned, at number 5, behind DC at number 4. You and I had that flipped. We both had DC behind LA based on that game. I think it's fair to give DC the nod because of their first 2 weeks of performance, but it's hard for me to give somebody that much. It wasn't a close game. It was a complete blowout, straight mollywopped, as we were saying all weekend long. So to see DC ahead of LA, a little hard for me, but I understand that one. And then you have Dallas, number 3. I think they've kind of solidified their spot in that number 3 spot. St. Louis, number 2. And then Houston, number 1. Really just nothing saying that Houston can't. Houston's basically played the same game for 3 weeks. They just outscore you and then work you down at the very end to not let you catch up to them. So Houston, number 1 for sure. I think that's just an obvious pick for number 1 in our power rankings.
Oh, easy. That's the easiest, and everything else is up for the debate. And it looked like on Twitter when we posted those, a lot of people agreed, but I think some people, were kind of questioning it or, being a little combative. Were actually at the bottom of it, and us flipping New York and Tampa. One team beat the other, but the power rankings are fleeting, and what have you done for me lately? And they incorporate really whatever kind of criteria each of us puts into them when we vote. But I mean, just from the eye test, looking at those football teams, one, like you said, going in a positive direction, fighting back, even though their record is pretty bad. And, the other looking like they are on the verge of just total disarray, and they are discombobulated in every phase of the game.
Here's the way I look at it. If I had to play one team and I had the choice to play one team next week to win $1 million or to win $100,000 or to make the playoffs, I would rather play the Guardians than the Tampa Bay Vipers. That's how I look at it. And right now the Vipers are looking better than they have in the last 3 weeks, while the New York Guardians do not. So I think that's kind of how I put it together.
And then I love the Dallas Renegades Twitter account putting the picture of Batman and Robin climbing up the wall. Just climbing.
Well, they have a huge matchup this week that I think we're going to get into a little bit later. But that XFL showdown, that might be the most anticipated game so far this season. I think with both teams having so much in the balance. Houston trying to solidify themselves as the number one, and Dallas trying to show that they are the team that they said they were. So it's gonna be a good game.
Oh yeah, that we might if Houston wins that game, they might get 2 spots ahead of everybody. We might have to leave a gap between them and everybody else if they're able to beat Dallas this week, because that's gonna say a whole lot if they beat their in-state rival. And what are you calling that again? The official, unofficial nickname for the Roughnecks and Renegades?
It's the hashtag TexFL Showdown.
TexFL Showdown. All right. Well, how about we run that by our guest here coming up, and we'll see what he thinks about it. We're going to talk to Jonathan Coachman from the XFL Pregame. And if you missed it, we were a part of the XFL Pregame, Bryant. Our shenanigans in St. Louis made the show. Did you see that?
Oh, I saw it. I framed it. I don't know how you can frame a video, but I framed it, put it up on the fridge for everyone to look at. That was pretty cool to be a part of that pregame show. But it was cool to be a part of that pregame show. We watch it every morning, Alan, before the games start. You and I are always on pins and needles waiting for that thing to post. So we're able to watch that before the St. Louis game. So it was a lot of fun. We're out in St. Louis showing the world how hyped St. Louis was for that football game.
Yep, and Jonathan Coachman hosts that show with Elise Ashton. And, of course, you can watch those on Saturdays and Sundays before kickoff of the first game each XFL week. Jonathan Coachman, we plan on talking to him at this time every single week throughout the season to recap all the action with him and look ahead. So here we go, our conversation with Jonathan Coachman right here on This Is the XFL Show. The word everyone's throwing out is parody, but the word I want to throw out to you to start this off is Ka-Kaw to you, sir.
I told Elise on our XFL pregame show that I would never, ever say that Ka-Kaw stuff that you guys had in your reports from St. Louis. All of a sudden, Elise loves it. I refuse to do it. They will have to win an XFL championship before I will do that ridiculous Ka-Kaw.
Well, yeah, that might be this year, Coach, because they're looking pretty good, and now they're atop the East. I mean, they were, electric at home, and that's where I want to start because that's where we were this weekend for the Battlehawks in the Battle Dome and their big win against the Guardians. And how impressive was that team to you and that crowd, more importantly?
Well, we knew, coming in that whether it's from you guys or from reports coming out of St. Louis, that the city, because it seems a lot longer than, 4 years, 5 years since they've had professional football. When you hear somebody say 2015, it seems a lot longer ago than that, but it wasn't. And you knew they were starved. You knew they wanted a professional football team, and it showed yesterday. And on top of that, St. Louis is a really, really good team. They easily could be 3-0. Easily. They've got a really, really good quarterback. And what I want people to understand is when you see your team play well, there is one overriding reason for it. You've got a quarterback who is playing good football. If you look at the successful teams right now, that's what you have. And if you look at the teams that are struggling, that's exactly what you have. It's not a difficult thing to figure out. And also you're seeing offenses that are a little bit farther ahead because of the good quarterback play. For me, it's very simple. And St. Louis is right there as a team that I'm looking at, along with Houston, and I would have said D.C. before this weekend, but they got exposed yesterday. So to me, the two best teams are Houston and St. Louis.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. After this week 3, my favorite thing coming out of this weekend, Coach, is that last week we were saying the best teams in this league were a couple teams, the DC and Houston. Now the tide is shifting a little bit, and I expect it, I don't know about you, to kind of shift throughout the season because the word everyone is using today, parity, is real in the XFL, and a lot of these teams are just getting better week to week.
Well, I think one thing that I have to keep saying week after week, so that I don't like playing to the negative Nellies, but they're out there. And we want all the fans that we can get. Is that there still has to be a little bit of patience because the teams just haven't been together that long. Now next year it'll be different because players will be coming in a little bit earlier. They'll be believing in the league. This year it was hey guys, we're all starting together. We're all going to go and train together, and it just takes teams a while. When you've got a Landry Jones in Dallas who didn't play week 1, that's going to take him a little bit of time. And how much better did he look, Alan, this week than he did his first week? And so those are things, and that's how certain teams are going to get better as the season progresses.
And yeah, you could say the same thing too for Josh Johnson, I think, for the LA Wildcats, who really stepped his game up in that huge win for them over DC. Real quick, wrapping up the St. Louis victory. They looked awesome. Their fans were awesome. The battle, Hawks chant back and forth. The dome was rocking. But what about those New York Guardians? They had 9 points scored. I think they lost their cool a little bit in that game, Coach. And, when we're talking power rankings on our show a whole lot today, New York's near the bottom. It's them or Tampa, I think, amongst most of us. Can they recover from the hole they're in right now, the Guardians? Because they look almost in disarray.
Well, they can. There's only been 3 games, and I was trying to target how many wins it's going to take to get into the Final Four, and I'm guessing it's going to take 7. So if that's the case, then they've got to go 6-1 the rest of the way. However, with what I saw the last 2 weeks, and this is the beauty of getting the interviews done on the field during the game, in the moment. And last week, who went viral? It was Matt McGloin, because of let's throw the entire playbook out the window. Those are things you don't normally see in an NFL game, so you don't know the turmoil behind the scenes between the offensive coordinator and the quarterback and the head coach and the wide receivers. You're going to see that play out. So going into this past week's game, you knew how McGloin felt about the offense, didn't you? We all knew. And so when I watched that game against the Battlehawks, all I kept thinking in my head, Alan, was, man, McGloin's getting ready to go off again, and we're going to get to see it. And the ability to think that could happen was enough to keep me glued for the entire game, because he had another awful game. And you can't sugarcoat when somebody plays bad. And I think these players are starting to show the world. Hopefully NFL players will see this, that when you make a mistake, you got to be able to handle it like a man. And you just can't go off and yell and scream and curse. You got to stay in the moment. You got to be an athlete that understands you're going to make mistakes. And that's what I love about the interviews during the game, is that you're seeing how players adapt and handle adversity. And Matt McGloin right now is the poster child for that.
Oh, absolutely. I think we know more about these XFL players than we know about a lot of NFL players we've watched for years and years just because of that access, Coach. And I think what we saw at a Cardell Jones on the sidelines and the cameras and microphones picking him up, was that he's a guy who he took this loss in stride. I'll call it a whooping in stride. They got beat bad, DC, and kind of was, before that game was over, he was telling his guys to put it behind us, and he was telling the media, we're putting this one behind us. It's one game, and you like to see that out of DC, but what a game that was. LA 39, DC 9. No, I don't know if anybody saw that coming, but it happened, and now I think that game really changed the entire complexion of the league, really, when it comes to the East and the West.
The reason it was a surprise is because Josh Johnson, much like Landry Jones, did not play week 1. He was injured, and we didn't know what he would have because a lot of these quarterbacks haven't played in a significant amount of time. And I think what Cardell Jones is channeling is he understands that this is his last chance to be a big-time quarterback. He's got everything that you could want, the physical skills. So the question for him has always been mentally. Can he handle the mistakes? Can he adjust throughout the game? Can he make those adjustments so that he can call audibles at the line of scrimmage. And I believe he's told himself that this is an opportunity for all NFL executives, for all football executives, all XFL executives to see how smart a football player he really is. If he didn't handle that loss in stride, we would know it, we would see it, we would hear it. And I think this is helping players adjust like these quarterbacks and showing coaches and players, and executives how they handle in the moment adversity. And I think that's the best thing that we're learning about these players and these quarterbacks through the first 3 weeks.
I can't wait to see Pep Hamilton recover from that game too and game plan for Tampa next week, because I feel like he's a coach that's going to be really good at bouncing back after something like that. And they're taking on a Tampa Bay team that finally, coach, got an offensive touchdown, but still at the end of the game, red zone offense was the issue, and they ended up coming up short. Would have had a huge upset over Houston in what was a really fun game to watch. DC and Tampa Bay. Could DC potentially lose back-to-back weeks to winless teams?
Here's the deal, and I would say this to Mark Trestman, the head coach for Tampa, to his face. I said it on the show. I'm going to say it again next week. I don't care that they scored 27 points last week against Houston. The bottom line is you're not going to maximize your ability as an offense unless you buy into one quarterback. I'm all about the way the Saints use Taysom Hill, okay? But Mark Trestman platoons his quarterback sometimes during a drive. You can't ask a quarterback to do anything less than that. I mean, how is he supposed to be ready for 3rd and 6? You know what I mean? All right, go ahead. He's not a wide receiver. He's not a running back. He's the quarterback. So until Trestman decides on one guy, Cornelius, I personally would go with Quentin Flowers. I think he's a better runner. I think he's more confident. And he went just short of saying on the sidelines, I should be the guy, because he's a team guy. But Trestman, if he doesn't settle on one, you know that old saying, if you got two quarterbacks, you got none. Well, right now I feel like they have none. And until he settles on one, but again, he's always been a great play caller. I don't know how great of a head coach he is, but we're seeing it, and you can't hide. And you can't hide behind somebody else because you're hearing everything the head coach says. And I think right now it's a mistake, but I'm not the coach. But all I know is that what I'm backing my opinion up with is 0-3.
Yeah.
And inconsistency when I watch every single down of this Tampa team play. So I think there's some validity to what I'm saying. He would probably disagree because he's the head coach. But you got to win games. You got to score points, period. End of story.
Well, I'm with you, Coach. The teams that are winning right now have some consistency. LA found the consistency at quarterback, and look what happened with Josh Johnson. DC, start off with Cardale. That they had a rough one this week, but they're near the top, and of course Houston with PJ Walker and Tampa Bay. Now Aaron Murray getting healthy too. I mean, another decision for Mark Trestman. You just got to pick one and go with it, I think. And I think that offense could move the ball, and they were really fun to watch in that Houston game. But Cam Phillips and PJ Walker were the ones of that. They dominated. They're the budding stars of this league. 6 touchdowns in 2 weeks for Cam Phillips. Amazing. I mean, I don't know about you. I didn't expect players to really separate themselves as the elite class of this league this early, but these two guys are head and shoulders above everybody almost.
Well, I think there are certain players that are realizing that if they continue to show out and show up, that their phones will be ringing come May when the NFL season truly starts after the draft. And we're already seeing, I can name 3 to 5 players right now that I've seen on Twitter where people have said, this guy is going to be playing for this team next year in the NFL. And ultimately, we want to have 10, 15, 20 stories like that. Because guess what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years? Now you're going to have guys in the NFL, they're going to say on Sunday, so he was playing for the Guardians last spring. He was playing for the Wildcats in L.A., and to where they're intertwined. And these players are realizing that they've never had an opportunity, Alan, like they have right now, where not only are you seeing what they can do on the field, you're starting to feel what kind of a person they are off the field. And more, when you're a fringe player, when you're not going to be a star in the NFL, guess what? You got to be a great teammate. You got to be somebody people can rely on. you got to be willing to do things that other players aren't willing to do. And I think you can take a little bit out of that when you see how a person reacts to adversity. And I think that's a really cool thing. And it's going to be an intangible that executives are going to use when they're looking at what players they want to bring into camp.
It's exciting to see these guys take advantage of the opportunity. You had Martez Carter flip it into the end zone and then taking the time to show his coach. I think he showed too much on all those touchdown celebrations. How many more flips can he do with any other touchdowns he scores the rest of the season?
Well, every athlete will tell you the next touchdown could be the last touchdown. So if that's the case, then you want to show out as much as you can when you score. Now, you hope that he scores a lot. So maybe he's going to have to get go above and beyond with his celebrations, or get creative, or bring other people involved. But that's on him. And I'm anxious to see what happens.
Oh, man, that LA team had so much fun in that win. And I don't know, could you? I could never keep the stone-cold face stare Winston Moss had when that Gatorade bath hit him. It looked like it was just like a soft breeze hitting him. He did not budge until his players got right in his face. Did you see that? Could you possibly keep your cool like he did? He looked, oh, man, unshakable.
I mean, it is to go through what these coaches have gone through, what these players have gone through. I just think it was just a moment that he's been waiting for a really, really long time, and that really felt good. Because when you're a coach, let's remember, this is all about storylines, right? When you guys do your show every single day, you're talking about storylines. These are these guys' lives. And as you can tell, this means a lot to me. I love trying to be a small part of somebody else living out their dream, because this is my dream. I'm living my dream every single day. So when I see these players and what they're willing to go through, what they've gone through, and the coaches living in 15 or 20 different places just to coach this game, when I look at it like that, then I can see why sometimes you can react that way, because a lot of things go through your head, because it's hard to be successful. It's hard to win at any profession, let alone professional football. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, it was beautiful from that scene. And of course, St. Louis this weekend, there was a lot of joy in some locker rooms. And of course, the Bud Light seltzer showers were on and popping as they tend to do in the XFL. We're learning, Coach. Well, we're headed off into week 4. So anything left before we talk to you after next week, man? This was the most interesting weekend I thought so far, and I think week 4 is really going to be pretty wild when you consider all that's going to be on the line. The further we get, we're almost halfway to the season almost.
Man, it's going great. Every week is getting it even better. The interest is still there, and most importantly, the football is really good. And this week, the one game before I get out of here that I'm looking at, Sunday, 1 o'clock, FS1, Dallas hosting Houston. That's going to be an awesome game. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, well, Bryant coined that the XFL Showdown. What do you think of that name? Should we work on it?
I like it. I really do.
We'll put it on a T-shirt for you, Coach, and we'll talk to you next week. Enjoy week 4.
Sounds good. Same time next week, boys. Have a good one.
Well, I couldn't get him to Ka-Kaw, Bryant, but he did approve of the XFL Showdown. So there you go from the coach in my conversation with him. He sends his best to you. For you not being able to make that call with us earlier.
Yeah, I had planned to be on that call, so I appreciate you kind of stepping in there and filling in. So what you're saying is he's not for the Ka-Kaw that we're promoting so hard on this show, but he is for the XFL Showdown. So he likes half the stuff that we do. I guess that's an okay percentage for now, but a lot of fun to talk to the coach every single week. I'm glad we're doing these to get the perspective of him who's hosting that pregame show, with Elise Ashton. And like I said, it's a good show. It gets you ready for the week of games. He makes his picks. And Coach giving his opinion on the XFL, which, you know what, he's passionate about. He was there in 2001 for the first iteration. Now he's here for this one. He loves it. And to show that passion every single weekend, 2 times on 2 pregame shows is a lot of fun.
Yeah, never miss that XFL pregame. Watch it on XFL YouTube or just get the XFL app and you turn all those notifications on. And anytime something cool from the league is out and games are kicking off and whatever you need from the league, it's right there on the XFL app. You could download it today, get real-time scores, stats, scoring plays. I was sitting there with the app open on my phone during the game in St. Louis, helping me out, knowing how many yards the Battlehawks were racking up all over the Guardians. You also get insider videos, and like we said, that pregame, all the news from across the XFL. The XFL app gets you ready for game day with venue information too, team updates. So we saw Battlehawks fans walking in. They had the app open because, well, you could customize it to your favorite team, and you get your in-stadium, on-the-go ticketing, all of it right there in one place. The XFL app, your source for everything XFL, and you could download the official XFL app for free today, right now in the Google Play Store or in the App Store. Go get it. It is essential, especially for anybody listening to this show. You follow the XFL. You love it. Get the XFL app, baby. Now, let's get into all these games, recap them a little bit more one by one, look ahead for each team one by one, put a bow on week number 3. In this week's Hot Read,
All day long, great focus, great intensity.
Great focus, great intensity. Let's do this, Bryant, and recap week number 3. We'll briefly touch upon each game. We've already done our recap mini-sodes, instantly talking about them. Now we've digested it a little bit more, have some other comments to make, and then we'll look ahead for each team. And we'll start with that first game from Saturday. Houston beating Tampa Bay 34-27. The Roughnecks still undefeated, and it was an impressive game once again for them offensively.
Trailing by a field goal deep in their own territory. Here's Walker, steps up and throws. Ball was tipped, and it's caught. Racing down the sideline is who else but Cam Phillips for the touchdown. How about 84 yards to the house?
You know it's a good day when you're getting hit and the guy's still catching the ball for 84 yards, Brian.
Well, you know it's a good day, too, when P.J. Walker drops the ball, picks it up, dusts it off, and runs into the end zone before anybody knows what's going on. That was a great game offensively for the Houston Roughnecks.
Did you just quote Mr. Coach Klein right on the show from the Waterboy?
Maybe a little bit. If you check it out on Instagram, I ended up putting something together there at XFL Show. It was a lot of fun. It's basically what happened. Great performance again by the Houston Roughnecks. Tampa Bay looked good. They looked different. Again, though, that one bugaboo that they can't seem to get over is what plagued them at the end of the game, and that's being able to get into the end zone when they're in the red zone. I think there were 2 for 3, maybe 2 for 4, Alan. But sometimes in hockey, there's a saying about power plays. It's not how many, but it's when you're able to score on the power play to put teams down. Tampa Bay, even though they were able to score while they're in the red zone, it's about when you do it, and they weren't able to do it in the fourth quarter when the game was on the line.
Well, honestly, Tampa Bay, if you at the end of week 3 say which teams showed the most improvement, they're up there, maybe the most in this game against Houston. But yeah, the capitalizing on the opportunities, and while they fixed some of the issues and were able to score 2 for 3 in the red zone, their quarterback, like the coach mentioned earlier, their quarterback switching was still kind of odd to see. As a fan, maybe with Aaron Murray coming back, it'll just settle on him and have some special stuff for Quentin Flowers because he is a dynamic player. But the thing about Tampa Bay is at the end of that game, they're on the 37-yard line of Houston, driving, a chance to tie it or take the lead, and Cornelius throws that pick. DeMarcus Gates pretty much sealed the game for Houston. It was all over then, and that again, Tampa Bay was driving. And they stalled. It was either just stall or they make a mistake. That was a mistake there by the young quarterback, Taylor Cornelius. And it told me a lot, though, this game, mostly about the capabilities of the Tampa Bay Vipers. They are able to play with anybody in this league. They can move the ball. They can score the ball. And I think if they just keep that fire that they had in this game, because you knew they were going to be up for it, home opener, best team in the XFL in the house, they need to play like that every week, and they will see results. I truly believe that. I saw some people, Brian, on Twitter trying to say Houston barely beat a bad team. That's not the case at all to me. Houston played fine. They've, like you said, played how the same game they've played all season long. Tampa Bay stepped up in this game, and I don't think really they're 0-3, but I'm not going to call them a bad team.
I can't call them a bad team, and I won't call them a bad team. The only problem that they're having is being able to score when they're in the red zone. 4th and 1 from the 1 to get in to tie this game, or at least have an attempt to tie the game, and they get stuffed. Like I said, you talk about that interception that Cornelius threw. I'm talking about that play. That was with about 6 minutes left in the game. 4 minutes left in the game when that happened. But they're not a bad team. Houston has continuously played the same game. They score a lot of points. They get to a point where they're ahead of you, and then they put their foot down and don't let you score, and they don't let you come back. That happened to LA in week 1. It happened to St. Louis in week 2, and now it happened to Tampa Bay in week 3. Is it going to happen to Dallas in week 4? Who knows? But at the same time, Houston has a game plan. They're just scoring a lot of points. Possession, like you said, Alan, doesn't matter to this team. They just want to score points and make sure that you can't when the time matters.
Well, there we have it. The Roughnecks still undefeated. Another victory for them. The PJ Walker, Cam Phillips show rolls on. They have Dallas coming up this week in easily the game that we're most anticipating for week number 4, and they will be on the road for that one, Bryant. So Houston traveling to their, we're going to preview it a whole lot, but what do they have to do? Just real quick, just a real quick piece of your preview of this. What do they have to do to be successful in Dallas, you think? Can they continue to play this same game?
Will this work in Dallas, I think, is the question that we should be asking. And I don't think there's a problem there, because if they're able to score and then hold Dallas off at the very end, I think that's something that Landry Jones hasn't had to do a game-winning drive yet.
No.
Dallas has shown that they're able to stop a team at the end, like they did in LA in week 2. But the test is on the Dallas side. If Houston comes and gives you this exact same game, can Dallas do what they need to do? Landry Jones has not played well these first 2 weeks that he's played. So I don't know if Houston wants to tempt him by getting to a shootout, or just do what they're doing and try to make Landry Jones beat you, because he hasn't had that opportunity yet this season.
Well, both these teams have been really good with the lead at the end of a game, closing it out. And, that's going to be one of the fun things to break down on the late Thursday night show. But, yep, Houston on the road, and that game is Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern on FS1. As we've coined it, the XFL Showdown, Houston and Dallas. Tampa Bay, they stay home. They'll host the DC Defenders. What does Tampa Bay have to do? I think it's pretty easy. They need to just finish the game. You said, Bryant, full 4-quarter, 60-minute performance. Go out there and if this is the offense you want to run next week, what you did with Flowers and Cornelius, if Murray's not ready, I think you might be in good shape. You are developing some sort of, rhythm, I guess, and the other players look like they were comfortable a little bit this week. So if you continue to do that and you stave off a really angry and embarrassed DC team, it's going to just take playing the complete 4 quarters, and that means no mistakes in the 4th quarter to me.
Well, will you call them mistakes or just not being able to finish? I think those are 2 different things. That interception, I think, was almost like a necessity, because he's trying to move the ball down the field. You got to do what you got to do at some point, so I don't call that a mistake. You just got to be able to finish and play the game you want. If that's the way you want to do, you want to rotate your quarterbacks. I think they did a better job this week of rotating their quarterbacks than they did in the first week. Stayed a little more consistent with how they were doing it. But Cornelius.
If Murray's back, though, what do you do?
I think you keep Murray. Murray gained you 400-plus yards that first week of the season. I think you keep him in and let him try to finish for you. Maybe you bring in Flowers for a drive to just get things a little, to mix things up a little bit. But Murray, didn't show me any problems week 1 other than not being able to finish. And if they can figure those things out, then you put him back in there, and being at home might help him a little bit to get his feet wet. You don't want Aaron Murray to sit on the bench because even though Cornelius and Flowers are doing what they can, they're still not getting that job done. So I think you bring Aaron Murray back in here to finish things off for this team.
And I would have all sorts of plays written up, a whole playbook just for conversions for Quentin Flowers, because I feel like he could be a special player in the red zone when you have that kind of speed and mobility. We'll see how they utilize those quarterbacks. The Tampa Bay Vipers will play the final game. That's Sunday against DC at home, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. And that'll be a fun one to watch because the Defenders, they do not want to lose to winless teams in back-to-back weeks. Let's go on to the next game from Saturday. The Dallas Renegades beating the Seattle Dragons 24-12.
I got screwed up. I just got screwed up.
Jim Zorn, he wasn't totally screwed up, Brian. He wasn't all messed up in this one. Just in the second half, Seattle Dragons couldn't score. And they had no conversions in this one. They were really a completely different team in quarters number 3 and 4 whenever the Renegades came out and kind of blew their doors off with Donald Parham.
We talked about how Houston has played the same game for 3 weeks. I feel like Dallas has kind of played the same, Seattle has played the same game for 3 weeks where, for whatever reason, they come out a little flat-footed in that second half and really can't do the things that are necessary to win a football game. I know they beat Tampa, but I haven't been impressed by this team so far this season. They continue to do the things that I think are plaguing them, and that's just inconsistency at the quarterback play with Brandon Silvers. Dallas, like you're saying, they're getting their strides. Landry Jones has not played great, but he's played well enough to win. Dallas shuts you down in that when you're trying to come back, doesn't give you the opportunities that you think you might have. Dallas is looking great. Donald Parham, I'm telling you, he is something that I think teams can try to plan for, but if Dallas gets in that 10-yard range between them and the end zone, I don't see how you don't do at least 2 tries at throwing it at this 6'8" tight end that can just literally not even have to jump and still catch it way over everybody else's head.
I just think he's an amazing player, too, for his running ability. He outran the whole defense, too, on that play. The thing about the Dragons, they've blown leads in both their losses. We've said this. They've really competed with the teams that have beat them, DC and Dallas. But this second half showed you Seattle, I don't know if this was a game plan issue or what, but it feels like Seattle, they went out there, they competed, they have the athleticism, they have the players, but they came out in the second half and Hal Mummy and Bob Stoops felt them and they reacted in 10 minutes. I don't know how much you could game plan in 10 minutes at halftime, Bryant, but this really showed that Seattle as a second half team at home too. That's very worrisome to me. The fact that you came out in the second half not fired up, having played a pretty good first one against Dallas, and it's not like it didn't look like Dallas was doing anything except just continuing to the pace, continuing the speed. So maybe Seattle doesn't have the gas, and that's what we figured out. And Dallas has done that now 2 weeks in a row to LA and Seattle.
Wasn't that what you want to do as a football team, is play your game, play what you want to do and do what you want to do to win a football game? I think if you can win football games by doing what you want to do, and that's a perfect example with Houston specifically. Now Dallas is kind of finding that stride.
Get on the ball. Don't let them rest. Get on the ball.
If you can play your game and win football games, that puts you in a perfect spot for success every single week. So I think, like I said, this Houston-Dallas matchup, the most anticipated game, I think, before the season started, because everybody said, Houston versus Dallas is going to be a lot of fun. But I think for more so, we're getting 2 great football teams going head-to-head, both who like to play their own game that might collide very harshly in week 4.
Oh, week 4 is going to be off the hook. Dallas it feels inevitable in these last 2 weeks. It's just inevitably wear you out, and then they're able to pound you into the ground at the very end of the game. And they did that to Seattle. They did it to LA. And, yeah, they're kind of hitting their stride. Beautiful, long, elegant strides like Donald Parham running down the field.
Donald Parham stride, that's what that is.
They're awesome. So they are really coming together, I think, as a team. It's going to be interesting to see their defense against Houston's offense, though. I wonder if they're going to be ready for it. That's my concern for the Dallas Renegades. They are at home. It should be a pretty cool atmosphere there in Arlington. The Seattle Dragons in this game, they got gassed, but they came out firing in that first one, and it looked like Brandon Silvers, showed signs of being an effective quarterback in that first half. He hit Austin Prohl. He found his shots. He was accurate a little bit. But then in the second half, it all kind of collapsed on him, and I kind of wonder what he has to do to really be a four-quarter quarterback and continually bombard these teams with big plays, because Seattle, let's face it, in 3 weeks has made some of the biggest plays in the XFL, big long passes, and they like taking their shots down the field. Jim Zorn, I think, calls good games. This week, they're on the road at the Battle Dome, and it doesn't get any easier, and another team that plays all four quarters. St. Louis has proven that they are a four-quarter football team, I think even in a loss, so Seattle has a tough task for them. I don't know if I see any team winning in the Battle Dome this year, Bryant.
Yeah, after what DC did this past week in LA, I think it's going to be hard to pick a team to win in that building this season. But, Seattle, you talk about what Silvers has to do to get through four quarters. He has to settle down. He has some of the best weapons on offense, but he's doing it in the first half. He just has to continue it in the second half. And I think Seattle will be in a good spot. Again, I'm not super impressed with this team with the way they've played. I think they can play better. I think they have the tools to play better. But right now, they're just playing like a sixth-ranked, power-ranked team.
Yeah, they feel like one of the very first teams out looking on the from the outside looking in at the end of the season. Right now, to me, the Seattle Dragons, a team that they have players that are capable, but they just can't put it together for the entirety of a game. And I like the same. It feels like, broken records, like the same thing we said last week and after week one. Even in a win, Seattle kind of looked like this. So we'll see what they do. I keep saying it. Run the ball, Zorn. They've got that hydra of running backs. Dallas did a pretty good job trying to bottle them up, Gardner, Williams, and Farrow. But Seattle Dragons definitely are not an easy out ever, and they're proving that at least, because this was an earned victory for Dallas. They really had to put some stuff together for that second half, and they came out and they got the big plays and they executed. Let's see what they do against Houston. They take on, again, the Roughnecks at Sunday, March 1. 4 p.m. Eastern on FS1. The Dragons in the Battle Dome is Saturday, February 29th. That's this Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern, and that is on Fox, and that will be loud, and that will be very fun to watch, and there will be lots of Ka-Kawing, and there will be also the Battle Hawks chant, which was epic. Let's talk about that fun time in St. Louis. 29-9, the Battlehawks beat the Guardians. And after the game, we talked on our mini-sode about how undisciplined the Guardians looked, and Kevin Gilbride in his press conference said as much.
On our side, I thought our guys played hard, but we did not play very smart. And you can't win football games when you play like we did and make as many mistakes as we did. There was foolish penalties, stupid penalties, and just too many errors to win a football game against a good football team. And I told our team that. I was very disappointed. Again, I think that there was areas that we showed improvement, and I was pleased with that. But again, you can't beat the opponent and yourself at the same time, and we did that too often. So that was very disappointing and made this loss even more difficult to accept than a normal one.
Yeah, that's very tough to accept. I would say so. That was really rough to watch from where we were, Bryant, in terms of what the Guardians were doing and what their body language was on the sideline and what they were doing in the locker room and on their way home. I could only imagine. And we've said that now 2 weeks about this team, and that is not a good thing. Bottom of our power rankings. How do they fix it? They've got some options now at quarterback, some decisions to make. What do you think they should do?
Well, I asked you the question on our mini-sode, our recap. What's the one thing you would fix if you were, the Guardians? What would have got them closer in this game more so than anything? That's kind of how I look at it. I think if they were more disciplined, you got to play smarter. That's what I would try to fix if I was the Guardians. You're not going to win football games no matter who's playing the quarterback if you're taking dumb penalties, if you can't make the obvious tackles, the obvious plays. If you're mentally not in this game, it doesn't matter who's playing, because like Kevin Gilbride just said, you can't beat the other team and yourself and still expect to win the football game. So that's where I would start. And then you mentioned the quarterback. I will bring that up. I think although Matt McGloin, to me, looked really good in week one, he has obviously not looked great in week 2 and 3. I think it's time, and especially with that rib injury, I don't know what his percentage level would be for a game this week when the Wildcats come to town. Marquise Williams had some great drives in that game. Late in the game, he wasn't able to finish, put a little too much zip on some of those passes that maybe he should have put a little more touch to. But Luis Perez looked pretty good. I know that was kind of late towards the game. I'm sure there was some second stringers in there for the Battlehawks. It's a tough decision. I think you go with Marquise Williams as much as I love Luis Perez, and I think he could spark something in this team. It just gives you a different way to play the game than Matt McGloin and Luis Perez have. Not obviously the same game, but similar games. Neither man is that mobile like Marquise Williams is. So I think you put Marquise Williams in there. And he had some great passes, some great plays. So I think Marquise Williams gives this team something different, which is what you got to do when you're playing the way you have the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and also we mentioned it last week. The Guardians have injuries on their offensive line. And when you've got injuries on the offensive line, your quarterback is under duress and has to move more. And Matt McGloin and Luis Perez, compared to Marquise Williams, not suited for that. So maybe with injuries on your O-line, he's a better option. And, I don't know how healthy Garrett Brumfield will be this week for the Guardians. We'll see. But that's what I'm with you. I think it's Marquise Williams' turn at quarterback for the Guardians. And also, I'm going to say this, G.A. Mangus has been calling the offense for New York so far this season, and we went into it thinking it would probably be Kevin Gilbride. Maybe it's time for the head coach to think about taking over those duties or something, because the communication issues are so prevalent for the New York Guardians on offense. It's almost hard to watch as a fan just to see how the frustration on the field, and you would hope that they could correct this somehow. I don't know if they don't know the terminology. I don't know if they're having technical issues, what it is, but no team looks as confused out there each week as New York does on offense. Am I wrong there, Bryant?
I don't know if it's the play calling, though. It's just been the play of the team.
But really the communication is an issue. You see them with their hands on their head. Players are looking all over like, what the hell are we doing out here? And everybody gets all up in arms. It's why you had McGloin having his blow up.
You know what, though? If you take the play calling duties away from G.A. Mangus, then you're kind of giving some validity to what Matt McGloin said in week 2, and I don't think you want that kind of attention, at least not this week. Maybe let another week boil over, because I think the Guardians can play better and make Mangus look better. I think that's how you kind of have to put it. If it doesn't work this week, if the Guardians come out disciplined and well, self-controlled, and they still can't score the football, then I think you can make that change. But right now, the Guardian players are shooting themselves in the foot way too much for me. But let's not make this all about the Guardians. The Battlehawks, come on, man. They had a great and impressive game. You got to give them some credit for how bad the Guardians played, because the Battlehawks just looked great.
Oh, of course, yeah. And the atmosphere, that we knew that the Battlehawks would come ready, and their fans were going to come Ka-Kaw. And we knew that the Jordan Ta'amu was going to be put in great situations by his coaching staff, and I've seen that all season long. I think the play calling for the Battlehawks has been money all season long, and we've discussed that. Oh, are they a gadget offense? Are they smoke and mirrors? I say no. I think they're just very multiple, and they are able to attack in different ways according to who the opponent is. They've been picking weaknesses, and they've been attacking and being very effective, and most importantly, running the ball really well. Their offensive line looks great, and then you saw what they did on that kick return, and I think, Bryant, at this point, with all that they've shown they're able to do and how multiple they are in their play calling, it might be the most innovative team in the XFL in terms of the ways they can hurt you.
Gimmick offense, right? Isn't that what we heard before?
Oh, a total gimmick. Yeah.
The Battlehawks, we didn't give them enough credit before the season started on all the different ways they can beat you. Jordan Ta'amu, I said it on the recap show. It was an instant recap, so I really didn't get a lot of time to analyze it. But he looked good in this game. I know his stats weren't there, but he looked good. His throws were accurate. His decision-making was great. I think he didn't have one bad throw really in this game. He did what he had to do. So don't let stats fool you on Jordan Ta'amu. And then when you can score on 4 running plays from your own 30-yard line, I think you're doing okay as a team. And really that team is functioning well. They're having a lot of fun out there. That stadium is electric. The fans, the support is there. I really see St. Louis as one of the better teams for many reasons in the XFL right now. So the gameplay itself is a lot of fun to watch. It's fun to see that they're not like that exciting fun, but they're just a lot of fun to see them play football with the way they do things and how surgical they are with the way they're playing both sides. Actually, all three facets of this game, special teams included.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I like you say that, the exciting fun, because they will just pound you with that RPO because they're going to set it up a lot. That's what I love about this. I love the way Jordan Ta'amu really makes it dangerous for these defenses, especially when you get to the later parts of the game, because he's been handing the ball off up the gut a whole lot and keeping them on their toes, making them play honest defensive football, and then he just can kill you with either his legs or rolling out. And he had the one play where he rolled out and he escaped a sack somehow, miracle, and throws it down the field accurately. He looks like a special player, and he's improving every week. And then, of course, that offensive line, the run game, Matt Jones looking like the best running back in the XFL right now, racking up the yards each and every week for the Battlehawks as they Ka-Kaw to the top of the East Division in the XFL. So two very different directions for these teams in the East. St. Louis now will host, as we said, the Dragons on Saturday, Bryant. And I think more of the same. You got to make the Dragons play honest on defense all game long, and they match up pretty well against that team. The thing is, I think that Battlehawk defense can get complacent a little bit. You can't afford to do that against players like Austin Proehl and those running backs Seattle has.
Keenan Reynolds and Austin Proehl, that's a dual threat wide receivers there that you're going to have to pay attention to, and then they have all those running backs. It's really if Brandon Silvers can place the ball where it needs to be placed. You got to remember, St. Louis has only given up 5 touchdowns. That's league best so far this season, and really 4 of those are against Houston. So unless your name is Houston, you're really not scoring touchdowns against this team. So it's going to be loud. It's going to be probably even louder than I would think last week, Alan, because to me, after this week, based on what we saw while we're in St. Louis, the word is only getting bigger that you need to get to these games because they're a lot of fun and the team's pretty dang good. But then you have the opposite that we were talking about. You have the Wildcats going to New York. New York, their first home game since week 1. You have the Wildcats coming in on a high with a lot of energy. They're loud. They might be louder than that crowd. Who knows what's going to happen in New York? I'm sure we'll get to that on our Thursday show. But 2 teams that are in the opposite directions, like we said, and I think opposite directions and also in what they have to face this week coming up in week 4.
Yep. New York, see who they pick at quarterback. My vote's to Williams, Coach Gilbride, but we'll see what you do. And good luck to the Guardians. They're going to be taking on a fired-up, swagging LA Wildcats team that is just, so dangerous after their big win against the DC Defenders.
At one point, I wanted to be the best Power Ranger ever, so no one else can do a backflip. I could.
Go Power Ranger Martez Carter.
I was the red one, Alan. Where were you?
Oh, red all the way. Yeah.
All the red, right? Okay, cool. I went to green and white after a little bit too.
Never. No. Red all day, all the way. Martez Carter.
Are you sure you were the red one, though?
Yes, just because I'm colorblind. That's a cheap shot. Martez Carter now is my new favorite Power Ranger. And the LA Wildcats 39-9 victory over the DC Defenders, shocking over the weekend. I mean, sure, Bryant picked LA to win, but nobody thought it would be a 30-point mollywop and drubbing of an undefeated XFL team. How dangerous are the Wildcats now that they gained all this swag? I mean, their coach, we know Winston Moss. We saw it in his face when he got that Gatorade bath. He tried to hold it in. He loved that his first win as a head coach was just such a complete team victory, and now they get to bring that to New York. Oh, man, what a special, special win, and could have been a very special turning point for their season.
Alan, you know how they talk about there's never a sure thing in professional football. Alan, if on Thursday I told you I'll give you whatever odds you want at plus 29 for the DC Defenders to win this game, you take that bet. I guarantee you anybody takes that bet. No way does no one take that bet. And then the LA Wildcats still come in here 39-9 and beat up on the DC Defenders at home. What a game. You're right. Winston Moss, knowing Winston Moss the way I know him, that energy, the team feeds off Winston Moss, and I guarantee you Winston Moss tries to stay stoic as well as possible, especially when you get Gatorade or water dumped on you. But that team is probably the last team you want to have that much swag, that much energy, because their coach feeds off that as well. They're all feeding off each other. The Wildcats look great to beat a team that everybody thought was going to come in and win in LA and make LA go 0-3. 3/4 of the show said that very thing. They did it. LA stood their ground and then some. Looked great on every. Can we pick a bad thing, Alan? Like literally, can we pick one bad thing that the Wildcats did this week?
Well, Martez Carter didn't get full rotation on that flip into the end zone, so maybe that's the one negative for the Wildcats.
If that's a negative, I'll take that every single week. Seeing Storm Norton, by the way, still do those pulling, screenplays or reverse passes or anything like that is just great to watch that man play football. It's a lot of fun to see him. When you see him bearing down down the field, trying to find somebody to block, oh, it's such a beautiful thing. It's like watching The Blind Side or something. That movie.
I will be coaching like a crazy man.
I like watching Coach Moss coach. I just like it's like seeing him calling his defense out, talking to his players, and then just standing there, Gatorade showering him, and he's just staring off into the distance. No expression on his face. And the coach,
they knew they were going to get it out of him, though. That you could see it, and everybody's like, "I know I'm going to get it out of you, Coach. I know I'm going to get it out of you." And they got it out of him, though. The emotion is
what
there.
a moment!
That's the thing. It's just this team's a lot of fun to be around. I've been around them. I have had the fortune to be around them a lot. And Alan, you were there during training camp, and you saw the energy coming from that team and the field and what they were able to do and not. And it's just a lot of fun. We saw them at a team dinner as well. And that team, this is the team that I think we were expected to see. Did I expect them to win this game or win any game by 30 points the way they did? Obviously not. You talk about parity in the XFL, and that's meant for these types of things not to happen. But to see it happen and to see the energy coming from that team, it's great. And I hope to see more of this just because it's great television. It's great. I'm a Wildcats fan. I'll say it openly on this show. I try to be as unbiased as possible. I try to be like you, Alan. But to see that energy, it's great for the XFL. Look how easy that TV broadcast was because of the energy that team was bringing throughout that game. It makes it for a lot of fun. It makes it great for the announcers, for us fans. It's a good time. So if the Wildcats can keep rolling the way they did, I think that's good for the XFL. Maybe bad for the DC Defenders because I don't know what happened there.
Well, yeah, the DC Defenders, we'll get into them in just one sec. I have one quick question about Coach Moss. Is this total vindication, beating the DC Defenders, for trading Rocket Ross and the landlord Anthony Johnson? Do we see those moves as, all right, Coach, you made the right call? Is the book still open on those trades?
I don't think the book's open. It's closed because they don't play again this season. Do I think they cared about vindication? I think there was a lot coming from the DC Defenders side. Rashad Ross wanting to be out of LA, or the LA Wildcats trading him. He tweeted before the game, this one is very personal. I'm not going to get into the reasons why and what they did to me, but this one is personal. And the Wildcats just kind of, stopped the noise. And I think it's complete vindication for that. I think the book is closed because they don't play again this season. Maybe they will. Who knows, actually? But the Wildcats look great, and they made if you follow their social media, they think they got the upper hand in total vindication on this for sure.
Yeah, they had a lot of fun with that victory too. And when there's that much trash talk going into it from the other side, that's when you win and beat them, that's when you go at them on, I guess. But what about DC? How much does a loss actually hurt the Defenders? At a division game, Cardell Jones, you heard him on the sideline saying it's just one. Forget this one. This one's already over with, whatever. Does that one hurt DC? Did it expose Cardell at all? I'm willing to give them, because of Pep Hamilton, the benefit of the doubt that was just a one-off. Maybe the quarterback had an off day, and collectively the team was asleep at the wheel for 1 week. I don't think that's going to happen a whole lot for a Pep Hamilton coach team. What about you?
Well, I think there's never such thing as a great loss or a good loss for a team, but this kind of brings them back to reality in the sense that you got to work and you got to strive towards every single victory in this league, especially in a 10-week season. DC was flying high. They were 2-0, had a great game in week 2. Week 1 was, an okay performance. They battled and came out with the victory, but I think this tells them that, we got to work on things. We can't let things like this happen again. Did they get exposed? Did anything that Pep Hamilton was Pep Hamilton not ready? Were the LA Wildcats just that much better? Those questions will be answered as the season goes on. But I think in terms of what you can do if you're a DC Defender or a coach on the DC Defenders is just, take a step back, see what happened, what went wrong, and get ready to play the games that you were playing the first 2 weeks of the season, because that's what you want to strive towards. And you want to make sure your players know that going forward, this could happen any single week. We could think that we're going to win. People can think that we're going to win, but you never know what's actually going to happen, especially in such a league and a season that's still in its infancy.
If any game has shown us so far, anything can happen in the XFL, and LA beating DC 39-9, I think definitely is an example of that. DC, like we said, at Tampa Bay, 7 p.m. Eastern on Sunday on ESPN2. LA, first game of the week at New York, 2 p.m. Eastern on ABC. I think I'm in Pittsburgh, Bryant, but I got some rabid Wildcats fans, family, young cousins who have been chomping at the bit to go roar and cheer on LA. So I think we're going to make the road trip to go watch that game at MetLife.
Making towns, Alan, and watching some football games. I hope you get some access into the Wildcats. Taking your family there is going to be a lot of fun. Next week's slate of games are going to be a lot of fun to watch. Hopefully you get to watch some of them after you go to the game, Alan, because I know you're making towns, like I said, to get to those games. But watching on TV is a lot of fun too. So I'm going to be sitting in front of my television watching all the action next week because, the XFL gives you access that you don't really ever get watching professional football. So that's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that you have. If you go to a game, definitely rewatch the game, because that's what I've done to every game.
That's what I've done. Yes,
because at least for anything, for Coach June Jones, come on.
I'm wondering what the hell you're doing in this league.
Or Martez Carter.
6 to the boy. 6 to the boy.
Or those Battlehawks fans. Get it. That's what it's all about.
You really get two experiences if you go to a game and you watch the game. It's like two different games, really, because of the access that you're getting at home and the vibe and the feeling you're getting at the stadium. And we try to provide that as much as we can while we're there. Alan, you're going to be providing some insight while you're in New York. So make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at XFL Show. And if you're listening to us now, subscribe and listen to us every single Tuesday morning and Thursday night on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your preferred podcast app. Also catch us on XFL.com or on YouTube.com/XFL, the official YouTube page of the XFL.
Yeah, buddy. Week 3 in the books. Put a bow on it, and let's go 6 to the board into week number 4. What?
Can I do this, Alan, real quick? 116 to the board. Right?
116?
Yeah, because they were episode 116.
Oh, yeah, that's the episode number. Yeah, I forgot. Man, they're just all blended in. It's like one long episode of XFL Talk. We'll have 117 late Thursday night. We'll hopefully have some good, crisp interviews for you. We'll hopefully have some accurate predictions. By the way, who went 4-0 picking these games? Was it you? I didn't.
It was this guy right here, leading the season, by the way. Now,
wow.
Isby.
Well, congratulations to you. It's only week 3. Anything can happen in the XFL. I'll get you. I'm going to catch up to you. Thanks to Jonathan Coachman, the coach, host of XFL Pregame, for joining us again for another recap of the weekend and look ahead. Look forward to these conversations with the coach throughout the season. We look forward to more of your tweets at XFL Show and, of course, calling into the XFL Fan Line. Get in. We'll play some voicemails on the Thursday night show, 724-565-4XFL. That line's open. Leave your name, where you're from, and your comment, and we'll put it right here on the podcast. And you can, of course, find this show wherever you get a podcast. Anywhere. Apple, Google, Spotify, and, of course, XFL.com. Thank you so gosh diddly darn much for listening to the show, and a Ka-Kaw to all of you. I like a polite...
Thank you, St. Louis.
I like a polite Ka-Kaw. That's my favorite kind of Ka-Kaw.
A Ka-Kaw to you, St. Louis. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And that's it. Oh, yeah, the St. Louis podcast. We got a special feature mini-sode on St. Louis football that you also have to check out. You'll see that coming up shortly after this episode drops. So check that out as well, Bryant. That has some good stuff.
Well, I'll check it out, but I was on it too. But you fans out there, check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. We basically chronicled our entire weekend in St. Louis, so it was a good time.
Yes, it was, and we look forward to more good times with all you XFL fans all across the country, and we appreciate you again for listening to the show. For Bryant, I'm Alan. We will see you late Thursday night for another edition. This is the XFL Show. Remember, they're listening.